Hi, and welcome to the Mentored Engineer. In this episode, we're going to talk about ladder logic and its benefits. Okay, so we want to find out what is ladder logic. We want to find out what it's an alternative to. And this is an electrical tool that allows us to follow our wiring schematics a lot easier. And I'll show you how that works. So let's say we have an example where we have a battery and we have a switch and it's going to turn on headlights. Now the headlights in our car, well, they draw a lot of power, and you don't want all that power. You don't want to run large wires up by the operator as he's driving the car. So what they do is they use a relay, and that's just a basic switch. Whenever it gets energized, it switches something on. Okay, so the schematic for that would look something like this. We have a battery, 12 volts, and it's got a positive, we'll draw it in there, positive and negative. And we have our switch on or the steering wheel or somewhere on the dash. All right, and then we have a relay, which is a little control box. It's got a coil in it, and that's what energizes it. It creates a magnetic field and flips switches on inside of it. All right, so when this coil energizes, it's going to close this switch. And then we have our headlights. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to run our 12 volts to our switch on the dashboard. We're going to run that to this relay, and then we're going to run that to the negative coil. So when I flip the switch, it'll energize this relay. We're also going to run wires to the relay, and then that switch is going to turn on the light, and then we also have a return back to the battery. Now, as you can see here, this is just 1, 2, 3, 4 components, and we have all these wires here that are just going to mess things up. You can see if we actually had the full schematic of a car, it would just be a nightmare to trace all these wires. All right, so this is where ladder logic comes in. So what ladder logic allows us to do is separate electrical components into the inputs and outputs. Okay, so let's take the relay because that's the best example. All right, we have a relay here. It's got a coil. All right, and then usually they have two sets of contacts, and those contacts can be normally closed and normally open. All right. So what you end up having here is you have a normally closed set of contacts between those poles, and then when it energizes, you'll have a normally closed or a closed contact between those ones. All right. So what you have is you've got the coil, you've got this, you got that, and you can see that's pretty complex, and you can have relays with 4, 6, 8 contacts if you need it. So it gets quite complicated there. Okay, so what we do is we separate it into two components. The first up here is the equivalent is just a circle. All right, and we'll put the contact name in there. So we're just going to say this is contact 1. All right, and then, I'm sorry, this is coil 1. The contacts are down here, so coil, contacts, make sure you get that straight. You have normally open and normally closed. All right, so we've now associated this to this and that to that. Okay, so let's do our thing in our ladder logic. Now the reason it's called ladder logic is when you draw this thing, it looks like a ladder. It's pretty cool. So watch this. We're going to draw two lines, and we're going to label one 0 volts. That'll be our ground. And since we're talking about a car here, we'll use a 12 volt system. That'll be 12 volts. And it can be AC or DC, 24 volts, 110 volts, whatever your voltage is, you just put it there. So let's continue with our example. We were having a headlight switch turn on a relay, and then that relay contact would turn on the actual light. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to run it up to the operator. We're going to have his switch, and you can represent these as many things. There's pressure switches, push button switches, limit switches. They all have different representations, and we will have a link to that. And then we're going to put our circle here and our contact 1. Sometimes you see CR, which means control relay. Pretty much you can do whatever you want as long as you're consistent. And a legend does help here. All right, so that's pretty simple. That's the first part. Where it gets great is right here. I'm going to start the next one, and that's C1 as well. And it's going to turn on lamp 1. Or in case of a headlight, we'd have 2 lamps. All right, so see how simple that was compared to all that writing over there. Much simpler. I can follow this, and then I can start labeling my lines. So I'm going to have wire 1, I'm just going to call this wire 2, and then wire 3 and 4. And I can label those, I can have them different colors, whatever I need to do to make sure I can see that. But I can go and say, okay, does wire 1 go to this switch? And we'll just call it switch 1. That's W1. All right, do I have a switch 1 that's got a 1 and a 3 on it? Cool. Do I have a control relay 1 that's got a 3 and a 2 on it? Excellent. Do I have a contact here that's got a 1 and a 4? And 2 lamps that have got 4 and 2. Excellent. I can check that very quickly as compared to the other one where it's just messier. It's not very good. Okay, so the other thing is well, you can see here that we've put this over here. We've separated that part. We've separated this part. So that's now over here. So you can see that I can continue to add things. Now let's say that I needed that the C1 actually had 4 sets of contacts. Or let's just say 3 for this example. Right? I had another contact that turned on lamp 3. And another one that turned on buzzer. All right, so when you turn on the headlights, it makes a buzzer go, and the dome light in the car comes on. Something silly like that. So you can see here that I have readily available this one right here, but what I don't have is one for this one. So I would need to get a bigger contact. And occasionally you'll label these like this is going to be contact set A, this will be contact set B, and contact set C. So if you can go through and you see a C, you're like, ooh, I need to get a special relay for that. Okay, well that's all the time we have for ladder logic today. And in our next video, we're going to talk about different configurations of this to get different results that we want. All right, thank you for watching this episode of The Mentored Engineer. Hope that you like this and can apply it in a electrical or controls project that you're working on. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe.